And I really got this insight, I guess you could say, of you are not living the life that you are supposed to be living. And we keep banging on your head, trying to get you to see that. You've made a lot of money. We've taken it away. We've done all these things. Now we've taken everything away from you to the point where you can't fix anything now. You can't fix your clients. You can't fix your jobs. The only thing you can do is fix you.
Guys, welcome to another episode of the podcast. My name is Michael Bullock, your host and founder. I want to appreciate you right now by saying thank you for being here. I appreciate every single one of you, every single episode that you show up. I super appreciate when I get feedback, but I know you're out there, and I just wanted to take that opportunity to say so now more than ever, coming off of Thanksgiving, a time to really remind ourselves to reflect. And I hope you did that safely with family, with friends, in abundance, and that you appreciate now more than ever things like our health. The last couple of years have been such a wake-up call and a reminder on that, and our freedoms that seem like they're under attack more frequently and in more ways than ever. And so many people feel this energy of an inflection point that's so important in our history, our country, our society, our world, our humanity. And if you feel that, I believe that's one of the reasons you're here. You're one of the people that are here to grow, to expand your mind, to get better, to become that better husband, father, partner, community member, service member that wants to start with themselves and make the world a better place by making themselves better, breaking multi-generational habits, creating new habits, creating a better world through service, through our manhood, as husbands, as fathers. And so while we talk about healing and growth, sometimes it's esoteric in the sense that we don't get into how. So today we're going to get into how. We have Scott Sunderland. This gentleman has been paralyzed. He nearly drowned and saw his best friend drown in front of him. But we talk about his belief that he manifested a lot of these things in his life, just like he manifested his healing, and just like he manifested the future that he's living now in happiness and abundance and fulfillment. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, I just want to mention a couple things because we're also barreling here towards the end of the year and a new year ahead. So things you may have seen come up from me around social media or by way of mention here briefly on the podcast. One was an immersive training event I did back earlier this year called Modern Day Night Project. As you may know, although I haven't had a chance to unpack it in detail on the show, it was a 75-hour men's event. And then on the other side of that, a community, a brotherhood, a mastermind, maybe unlike any other. But certainly there are these events out there that are big, they're scary, they're hard, they push us, and not just physically, right? That's the buy-in. The physical is just to get broken down to where you're willing to do the other stuff, the hard work, the real stuff, the real scary stuff. And whether it's that one or it's another one, or it's all relative to you. It could be bigger, scarier, longer, harder. It could be a lot different, right? It could be a silence retreat. It could be getting off the couch and taking a walk for the first time. It could be meditating for the first time. There's a million examples, but whatever it is, the important thing is keep pushing, because in those tough things, those tough times, those manufactured crucibles, that's what catalyzes growth. That's why it's called post-traumatic growth. So it's super important to have these things identified for yourself, work towards them, and then work through them. Impossible until not, right? Can't do it until we can. And so another one that's coming up, maybe by the time you hear this episode, but this weekend, the Suckfest 2021, Suckfest 2, a very big, long, hard, don't know how we're going to do it, but get it done type of thing. And in these come that suffering, that flow that will give you a creative energy and a buzz that's going to help you solve problems, come up with new ideas. As you do it with other people in person or remotely, You have all new relationships. You have a new frame of reference and perspective together that then lets you break through to new layers of your conversations and knowing each other and developing and growing and healing together. So, gosh, I don't know what you may be doing if you're joining us for that one or you're doing something else, but the important thing is do it and reflect on this year and reflect on what's coming up in the year ahead and how you want it to look, right? And think about that, particularly as we listen to Scott's story today and what he called the weeds growing in his life and how he had to really kind of weed that garden for good, if you will. Again, he recovered from a disease that paralyzed him that they thought was advanced MS. And then again, tragedy struck a decade later. He just wasn't where he needed to be yet. Almost drowned. As I mentioned, his best friend drowned in front of him. How do you recover from that? Survivor's guilt, amongst other things. And how does he feel like he manifested that? And how did he change and break that cycle to manifest a different future and a different reality? Well, we're going to hear from Scott, who has done all those things. He's figured out how to shake off those traumas and bring a new energy to his life. He shares that with others now through his story, through telling his story, through coaching, and how to, again, the how, right? How to really cleanse that toxic energy and how to create that new future. All right. Fantastic. Today's guest is the millionaire mind coach, Scott Sunderland. Scott, welcome so much. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Michael, for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I mean, there's so much we could get into as we were talking a little bit off air. I mean, we talk so much on the theme of this self-mastery podcast, the never-ending life journey, the pursuit of self-mastery. Like success, it's really a process, right? And it's got a lot of lefts and rights and ups and downs along the way. And we talk about passion and purpose and mission and fulfillment, stuff that you have lived and studied so well for so long. Now, we all have our baggage, right? We all have our shadows, our traumas. Every character has its arc and its tragedies. But man, you seem like you have more than your fair share of challenges that have really led you to some amazing insights. So I'm super looking forward to hearing about it.
Oh, yeah. I guess you could say I've been hit by the sledgehammer a couple of times, and you just got to keep getting up. I guess that's the moral of the story. It's there. You just got to keep looking for it, and happiness shows up. You just got to keep finding it. That's all.
Oh, awesome perspective. Well, give me a quick rundown. I know at one point you were quite athletic in your youth, ended up paralyzed, I believe, at one point, and that's not even the end of the story. So just give us a quick rundown.
Yeah. So I, super athletic, big skier, and owned a construction company. I started when I was, probably 19 years old, still own it. And I'm 50 something. And just really let kind of people's judgments, life, everything kind of own me. You always hear when, you don't own a business, the business owns you. Well, that was definitely my path. And I was really kind of in a bad spot. I guess I was probably in my 30s, mid 30s, and I was working ridiculously hard, super stressed out, and away from home, working on jobs, 18 hours a day, people screaming at me, afraid I wasn't going to get paid, all the things. And just kept thinking, man, I just want to go home and I just want to lay in bed. And 3 months later, there I was laying in a hospital bed, unable to move and with a body that refused to mind. And I remember laying there and thinking, man, I asked for this. So, wow, I really got the bonus plan here.
Wow. Be careful what you ask for.
Be careful, right? And you go down that road and, fully paralyzed, had to learn to eat again, walk again, talk again, the whole thing. It is the ultimate humbling experience, I guess you could say.
What was the medical diagnosis for that?
I had an autoimmune disease, a very rare autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré, GBS for short. And really a very, very rare. They didn't really know what it was for the first probably 3 weeks. They thought it was a very fast forming form of MS. And you hear those words, just like in any kind of diagnosis, you're like, oh, it's over, oh my God, it's done. I'm done,
Yeah,
And
I thought GBS was a one-way street.
yeah, it kind of is. I think people definitely heal because there's variance. So sometimes it can just be facial paralysis. Sometimes it can just be legs, just weakness. Sometimes people just experience weakness, and other people ventilator, the whole deal. I got the bonus plan. I didn't get the ventilator, but and then usually people have a lot of residuals, a lot of pain. It's a lot of tingling, numbness, stuff like that. And but I don't know. I just had a different perspective of it, and I had it pretty early because I had that belief of, oh, I created this. So if I created it, if I asked for it, then I just need to ask for something else. And maybe this is my reboot. Maybe this is my restart. And long road, but it ended up really well. Here I am. I'm back to being me, probably better than I was then. And yeah, so it is, for me, it was all about matter of perspective. And I didn't have a diagnosis. You know what I mean? Like the doctor didn't come to me and say, all right, Scott, so this is what you have. You're going to be laying in the bed basically for the rest of your life. And I remember the first time we really talked about it with my rehab doctor was the probably 2 days or 3 days before I was leaving the hospital after being in rehab for probably 3 to 4 months. And I said, okay, all right. And we were really close. And I said, okay, 1 to 10, 10 being the absolute worst, dead. 1 being, just the beginning stage. Where was I? He goes, 8.5.
Wow.
And it floored me. I'm like, oh my God. So what's a 9? He goes, never gets out of bed. He said, we have 9s. He says, I have 9s. They never get out of bed. And I said, God, I couldn't live that way, So.
Wow. So this, I think ultimately the theme that runs through your story and the work you do today and what we're going to talk about today, ultimately it's all about healing, right? These opportunities to have a wake up call and then to heal. And so that really, I mean, the way you made yourself sick and the way you healed yourself, it's physical, but probably more than physical, much more than just physical.
Oh yeah.
Mental, emotional, spiritual.
Mental, emotional, spiritual, for sure.
Not your only tragedy or trauma, though.
No.
What happened in 2012?
2012. And it's funny because, it's kind of, when I got sick, it was like I had this beautiful garden, and then all of a sudden the weeds all came in, and there I am laying in a bed, right? Overcome by weeds. Clear all the weeds out, years of work, try to get back and heal. Still can't ring that happiness bell, though. That fulfillment bell. Still can't ring that one. The weeds come back. And in 2012, just had the anniversary, my best friend and I and our kids are walking down a beach in New Jersey, and the beach collapsed, and we all went in the water. And long story short, I watched him take his last breath. And then I went down the survivor's guilt path of I caused his death. And he was a beautiful man, a great man, someone I loved, admired, called a brother. And it was really, really, really difficult, that loss. Obviously the loss was huge, but I felt that I was responsible for his life. And sledgehammer comes out again, starts beating yourself up for a couple of years, and really thought about it and kind of was like, you know what, I've been here before, and I healed. So I need to figure this out. And I sat on that beach because they didn't find him at first. He was lost at sea for about 3 or 4 days. And I made him a promise. I'm going to be great. That was my promise. We always talked about doing different things and just showing our kids how to be happy and just being good people. And I sat there on that beach every day. I would go down and I would say, dude, I'm going to be great. I owe it I owe it to you. I owe it to me. And if I can help even just one person with your story, my story, then I've succeeded. But I'm going to find happiness. No matter what the cost, I'm going to find that happiness. And cleared the garden again. And it stayed pretty weed free, I have to say. It's been a long journey. But even
Scott,
you were talking about, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, but before, I know there's even more to your story. So
Oh, there's
before
so
we go
much.
too much
Yeah.
further, I just want to, and thank you for having the courage to talk about all this and some hard stuff. I love the way you reframe so much of this into positive, into something useful, beneficial that serves something beyond yourself. I was curious as you were describing that, what going to the beach would look like after that. But it sounds like you were able to go back and not, maybe somebody would have trauma with the smell of the waves or the ocean or the beach, but it sounds like you're going back as a way to reconnect to your buddy, your brother, and to this mission you made a commitment to.
Yeah. Yeah. It is all perspective, right? And I've been pretty spiritual pretty much my whole life, and not in a God way, more of in a universe way. You are the God type of thing. I've always identified with that because, especially when I was laying in the hospital bed and I would watch, my brothers walk in and out, my father walk in and out of the room, and I'd be thinking like, what is it that they still have that I don't? Because I can't just walk across the floor, but when I did, I never thought about it. I just did it. So what was that? What was that I have a heart that beats, even if I'm laying in bed with, drool coming out of my mouth, my heart still beats. So Scott's not doing that. Scott's not walking across the floor. Maybe Scott has the thought of it in some form, but what is that thing that allowed me to do that? And now I am not in possession of. And I really got this insight, I guess you could say, of you are not living the life that you are supposed to be living. And we keep banging on your head, trying to get you to see that. You've made a lot of money. We've taken it away. We've done all these things. Now we've taken everything away from you to the point where you can't fix anything now. You can't fix your clients. You can't fix your jobs. The only thing you can do is fix you. So you are going to lay here. We have stripped you. So all that you are left with is your mind. Have fun. Have a good time. Let the journey begin. Player one, start now. And that really kind of was the journey of figuring it out, of the computer reboot. I was operating from a default program. My default program, and science has shown that the first 6 years of a child's life, of your life, really dictates the rest of your years. So you take in stimulant, whether it's fear, whether it's unworthiness, whether it's whatever, and you create all the events in your life. And I always tell people, anybody that I'm trying to help, work with, whatever, for me especially, it has never been the events in my life that have created the feelings. It's the opposite. It is the feelings that I am addicted to, that unworthiness, that has created all the events in my life. Because when you get down to it, that is quantum physics. That is what the science is. Well, there's really nothing out there. We can't prove to you, Scott, that there's a wall out there. So maybe the wall's just inside you. Maybe your eyes are not looking out into a world out there. Maybe they're just looking back into your mind. That is how I got out of that bed. That is how I forgave myself for the beach. And I saw it so differently when I would go. I am so drawn to the water now because I didn't see that as his death. I really saw that as a birth for him. I watched it. I watched the whole thing. And there was a feeling of loss in the moment and the tragedy of it and the pain of it. But there was a beauty in it too. And maybe just like healing healing our bodies, healing our, stock accounts, healing whatever, maybe we have to have a different perspective on death. Because if we believe that death isn't the end, it's just the start of another chapter, then maybe we can start having a different perspective of all the things that we suffer from. And we start taking all of our attention off of our conditions, off of our wallets, off of all the things that we don't have, and see it as all the things that we do have, and actually be just free and just happy and just be like, okay to be us. Who cares what people think? I'm done with that. I'm over what people think. It's just like, this is who I am, and I'm going to help who I can, and I'm going to put the message out there. Whoever resonates with it. And I'm going to look for people that I can follow and, I resonate with, that they pull me along. So it is the never ending journey, I guess, of happiness. The never ending pursuit of happiness. I think that was a movie.
There you go. Yeah, I think it was. No, that's great. I mean, you could look at death as an end, or an end of one part of a journey or one form. And, maybe that could become an excuse of, I'll continue this or that, and it'll end.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Or the other way around. A lot of times we don't like to think about death. Mm-hmm. And so we just cruise along on that default programming, or, we're not even really operating on anything. We're just existing without much direction or purpose or intent. Intentionality. I was just talking to an author recently who cited a culture that really celebrates death, right? Instead of, someone dies, they go off to the morgue, or they go off to the, to be prepared to look like they were still living, for us to honor the end of their living, right? Instead, they really embrace and acknowledge death, because it's coming for all of us at some point, right? And so that allows you some more perspective. I think you said perspective earlier, right? Some more intentionality of, how do I want to live my life every day? What do I want my program to be? I love that sort of spin on it as well. But let me ask, just since you mentioned survivor's guilt, right? So you've got an amazing perspective on this right now, but everybody is where they are on their path or their journey, right? And guilt can be such a powerful feeling and emotion, not necessarily in a positive way. So for somebody who has, a high level of guilt, and particularly survivor's guilt, was suicide ever a thought in your process? And how would you address that with somebody?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is what I would do. I went on the search for him. I went on the search for his voice to say, we're good. That's the only words I wanted. And obviously, as a pretty spiritual person, I knew he was out there. It's just, I just got to connect with him. And every night I would lay there and I would think, and I would really ask the question, dude, I need you to come. We have been through too much together. You got to tell me that we're good. In fact, I remember going down to the beach, and I brought a friend of mine, and I showed him exactly what happened, the whole thing. And I said, now tell me, was this my fault? And he just looked at me like with his tears, the whole thing. And he's like, how can you think that? And I said, because I think it is. It's my fault, isn't it? And he's like, dude, wrong place, wrong time. I mean, we all have our journey, right? But you hold on to it. It never mattered what anybody else said. And that's what is even worse, because then you get put on an island. No one can understand what you're feeling, what you're going through, how your mind is not stopping for a second of the day of thinking about this. So I remember the only way that I felt close to him is I would take my boat and in New Jersey, and I would go through the inlet out into the ocean, and I would go usually about 8 miles, 8 miles straight out. And I would say, okay, you have a choice now. He's out there to the east. You can turn that way. You can run till the engines run out of fuel. You'll get about 150 miles. Engines will run out. That'll be the end. or you can go back through that inlet, back to your life, back to your reality. So which way is it going to be? And it was like this deliberate, I had to make this choice eventually because I had to put it down, right? It's the ultimate closure. And it wasn't until probably the third time that I went back through that inlet that I was okay. I was okay with that whole point because, turning the other way, going to the other side of the boat, right? Going to the east, to the middle, right? To the abyss isn't going to help anybody. It's certainly not going to help me, but it's going to destroy just my kids, my family, everything. So why? So but it needed to be done for me. And it was kind of like my personal closure with me and him, and, we called each other ugly. That was our, two decent looking guys anyway. And, hey, ugly, how you doing? And that was always the comment to each other. And I was looking for ugly. I was searching. And I went to a meditation workshop, and this voice came in the meditation and it said, you're looking for the wrong one. The only one that you're really looking for is yourself, because I'm just a version of you, and you got to put this down. And miracles happen. And I put it down, and I just felt the weight of it come off of me. It was intense and incredible, and it wasn't just the weight of him. It was the weight of me, of all of those events, my whole entire life, of all these failures, all these judgments. The worst judgment is the judgment of ourselves. And it was all of those things that I finally put some of it down. You can't do all of it at one shot, but I put enough that it made such a huge difference that it really transformed the trajectory of my life in that moment.
That's amazing. I've heard similar stories and journeys. And if you don't mind, I want to ask a little bit more about that healing
Sure.
process.
Oh, yeah.
So one maybe ritual I've heard of from different cultures, including Native American cultures, and I've talked to sort of modern day 20th, 21st century soldiers or others who've been in a warrior culture, like other older warrior cultures, where they're in a position to have to take lives, to have a healing process, for themselves. That, I suppose, to describe it and visualize it this way, it is to make peace with that other soul. And I just thought of that as you were describing that conversation that popped up in meditation with Brad, or with yourself, or both. And as you said, I think it took a series of times and reflection out on the boat in a meditation retreat. Was therapy any part of that? Because I think some people find this healing process and resolution of trauma through therapy, and others don't have as much success with therapy, and meditation is a very strong tool.
Yeah, I tried the meditation, but the problem with, especially survivor's guilt, and, I work with people who they've lost their children, in fact, we just got news today of someone in our family, a 20-year-old, that took his life actually this morning. And, at first it's really, what do you say? What do you say to somebody that's lost their child? And for me, it was kind of that road. How is this person in front of me going to ever understand what is in my head? How are they going to understand the pain? How are they going to understand the hopelessness, the helplessness of it, But again, it was, for me, that experience was very similar to living in the bed, because I was both hopeless and helpless in a room on fire. As I always say, I was just on the room on fire. I didn't listen the first time. Second time, you better get it right, because you may not get a third time, right? You may not get the third one. So it was more going in and finding out who Scott was. Who am I really? Am I this? Who is walking across the floor? Who is beating that heart? Who is that? Because maybe I'm just living this, maybe I'm just living a character. Jim Carrey, God, he just said it the best at a commencement speech. And he said, we are just characters, but we're not the character. We are not the character on stage. We are the whole theater. And somewhere in the audience, there's this faint voice that's saying, it's behind you. It's behind you. It's behind you. And finally, we get so tired of hearing this distracting voice, we turn to it. And that's the moment. So it is this little voice that is back in our head, in our mind, that it isn't the voice that runs every single day like the freight train of how we are not any of the things that we thought we would be by now. I thought I'd be rich by now. I thought I would have the perfect relationship by now. I thought I'd be skinny by now. I thought I'd be healthy by now. And then there's that voice that says, you're not. You failed, right? But then there's that other voice, and every now and then it would poke its head into the room and it would say, you're just a character, dummy. You're just in the VR. You're just in the game. Just realize it. You're such a good player. You forgot. You're such a great actor. You forgot you're playing a character. And that is the voice that I had to find. And I think we all have to find. We have to amplify it. So what we do is, in talking to people, I say, come up with a new name. Scott's just the problem. Scott's the problem. He's going to tell you all the wrong things. That mind is just going to tell you all the wrong things. So get a name for that other voice. And people call it God. Nothing wrong with that. People call it universe. Nothing wrong with that. But let's bring it more personal. Let's call it Harry. Let's call it typhoon. Let's call it hurricane. Let's call it something powerful that when you are Harry, you are in a much different state than when you are in Scott. So I became Ugly, and Ugly had a voice, and Ugly showed up as the one that I lost. But in the end, it was actually who I was. He was just me. He was just me. And by me accepting that, I realized, wow, maybe I am bigger than I think. Maybe we all are bigger than we think. Maybe we are just living in this alternate universe, this, video game. Maybe that's what we're doing. How do I know your color blue is my color blue? I can't see through your eyes. I have been asking my children that question since they've been old enough to talk, because I can't see through their eyes. So how do we know we're seeing the same thing? And how do we know death is the end? So if you suddenly get the cancer, I was working with a woman who was diagnosed, she had with cancer, 3 months to live. And it was just the way she approached it. And then I said, you know what? I really have this feeling about you. And she said, please tell me. And I said, I think before you came to this life to live this person, you went to this jury and the jury said, listen, your next life is going to be amazing. Every dream that a person could dream, you will experience it. The love you will see, the love you will feel in your life is going to be absolutely amazing. But first, you're going to go in as this person. We're going to make it short. We're going to make it quick, but it's going to be painful. But we're going to pull you out early so you can get the other life. And she said, bingo. That's what I believe. And I said, then maybe it's time. And she said, but it's everybody else that has a problem with it. Everybody else is telling me to fight. And I just want to surrender. I just want to live that other life. I want to be free. I want to be loved. And I know it's right there. Think about all the people that are trying to fight cancer, trying to fight now, this pandemic of, this threat that's out there ready to strangle us, all these diseases that we are just trying to fight constantly. What if they are the door to freedom? The thing that is actually trying to heal you. Because listen, laying in that bed healed me. It wasn't me healing it, it healed me. Watching my best friend healed me. It took me into the room on fire that I had to run through those flames to find a door, which was there. But it freed me from myself. And if we could all maybe just look at that perspective for just a little bit, maybe we can stop all this fighting ourselves, because that's all we're doing. We're just fighting the voice inside our heads. That's the pandemic. That's the condition, is the fighting the voice. I'm fat. He'll never love me. I'm not worthy of that. I never will have enough money. All the voice that says of all the things that we will never be, and it's really,
it does seem that you said some very powerful stuff there. I'll see if I can circle back to a couple of points, but it does seem like unless we're super intentional about which voice is the loudest, and how we shape that voice, otherwise the loudest noise is generally not the most helpful and empowering. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it's that annoying voice, or the scary stuff, or the things you're avoiding, or the friction you find in other people. Those are all the things that you really need to explore, that are kind of a sign of something to grow from, or to resolve, or to learn from. And really, to me, the way I digest a lot of what you just said is energy.
Oh, 100%.
Right. And we're all somehow connected through energy. And I've had some coaches who describe life as embodied in our breath. Mm-hmm. And this form of living that we're in, it only exists as long as we're breathing. And when it's over, we're no longer breathing. That breath is the life, is the energy.
It is the
right. And so just springing off of that and everything you just said, I'm interested in your work you do and your healing process for yourself and others. How much do you involve breath? How much do you involve visualization, those voices with purpose, with intent?
Wow, Michael, you have just hit the whole enchilada right there. It's energy. It's energy. It's funny with what I do, because I have to be careful, because I don't want to freak people out and scare them away. I don't want to chase them out of the room. And when I'm dealing with somebody who really is struggling with a lot of things, and eventually after the 45 minutes of the victim, right? I have this. Eventually I have to get to the point and tell them, it's you. It's you. It's not your ex-husband. It's not your boss. It's not your mom. It's not your dad. It's not anybody. It's you. It's all you. Because there's nobody else. It's just energy. And you are addicted to this energy. You have a pond that is stagnant. There is no water flowing in. There is no water flowing out. And as long as that pond stays stagnant, it is going to keep growing shit everywhere. And that shit is lying inside you dormant. And it feeds that mind of pain. It just feeds it. Like, it's just toxic thoughts, toxic. And when you have the toxic thoughts, toxic feelings, you get the toxic environments, you get the toxic events, right? It's just simple.
Right.
So what do? You gotta flood the pond. You gotta open the gate and open the dam and let all that fresh water run in. So when you talk about breath work, my brother, you are talking my language, because that is what freed me. I just took that stagnant pond, that mind that was just full of those toxic thoughts, constant toxic thoughts. And I just opened the gate, and it shut it down, and it stopped it. Like, even for seconds, it stopped it. And I felt that energy run through me. And I'll never forget my first experience. I went into this meditation, and I remember this guy, he says, I'm telling you, this is gonna startle you a little bit. And I sat in that chair, the music started, and it was like a cue that, okay, this is what we're going to do. We made him lay in the bed, right? Okay, so now let's get ready, people. It's showtime. It's showtime. It's time for the fire to wake up. Let's poke the lion. Let's get the lion agitated because it's coming out today. And that lion came out. And that, boy, I'll tell you what, that music started, lights went down, and all of a sudden this energy started boiling inside me. And I was holding on to my chair because I was afraid I was going to shoot out like a rocket. And something did. And it was to the point where I thought my shoulders were going to dislocate, my legs were going to fly off. It was so powerful. It was a lion. And it just came up through my body, out my head, and boom, like a pop and a zit, a big one. It was, oh, this is what it's like. And it was complete bliss, freedom, like nothing could hold me. And it was that 10 seconds, 15 seconds that literally changed my life. And it's like, oh, I got to do this again. I need this again, like now. And then breath work. So my wife and I are, she is a breath work practitioner. And we walk people through pouring new water into that pond, And people always they'll say to me, but I got this mind that just doesn't stop. And it's like a freight train. And how do you stop it? And I said, the way you stop a freight train is you just can't put a wall up because it'll go right through. It'll break through everything. You got to get another speeding freight train in front of it. And you got to slowly, mile per hour by mile per hour, slow down to that freight train of thoughts, hits that other freight train, and it slows it down. It doesn't slow it down in a day, doesn't slow it down in a week. In a year, it'll get there. But that's when you go from living a 3 of a default mind that you were born, you learn to live in your first 6 years with your mom and your dad screaming in the other room while you're hiding underneath the covers, right? Scared to death because your whole world's falling apart. You still have that moment in your life. And I don't know if you saw it, Michael, and I'll have to share it with you. There is a YouTube video of these scientists that tracked down a polar bear. And they chased it with a helicopter, and it went into fight or flight, right? So it is, as it's running away, it's biting at the air, trying to fight the helicopter because it's not sure what it is, right? So am I scared? Am I fighting? When am I? But he is so in the moment. And then they shoot it with a tranquilizer gun, and the bear goes down. And they land, and they make sure the bear is completely out. And as it starts to come back, it starts to shake violently. It starts to take deep guttural breaths and huge exhales. And what they realized what it was doing was it was shaking off all of the trauma so it could just go back to being a polar bear. And that is the one thing that we never learned to do. So all those things that you heard your mom and dad screaming about, probably about your grades or whatever it was, or what you broke that day, and you're hiding under the covers, you're still living in that fear today. And those events are showing up for you. People always say, why do I keep attracting the same guy? Because that's what you're addicted to. You're addicted to people not treating you well because that's what you believe you're worth. That's what you took in. So now it's just every day you're just living that.
We'll keep manifesting the same thing over and over again.
The same thing until we get tired of it. Until we get smart. Two
things I just connected recently, and for myself, and you really described this well with the stagnant pond and breaking the dam, is one being back to energy, right? And emotion being energy in motion, right? Versus the other thing, most of us are emotionally constipated, is a term
Yeah,
I just
yes.
heard recently,
I like
right?
that. Yes.
So we took all those things, whether it was childhood trauma that
Mhm.
we just stuffed away, whether it was survival guilt, whether it was, whatever we're carrying with us now. And if we just bottle that all up in that stagnant pond, that's what we're going to continue to manifest.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to continue to. I don't even know if we can't describe that as energy in motion, because it's all this energy that's just stagnated, and we
Yeah.
got to find some way to break it free. And I suppose there are probably a number of ways to do this, but there's a hummingbird that just flew
Really?
across the window behind you.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't know.
Of course.
Yeah, hummingbirds are supposed to be pretty.
Oh, they're a big deal for me for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
For sure. So there you go.
yeah.
Thanks,
So
Mom.
that's
Thanks,
yeah.
Mom.
Yeah,
Thanks for
exactly.
visiting.
So, yeah, tell me a little bit more about how you and your wife work with people in this type of, clearing the pond, clearing those constipated emotions and energy and how do we release that? And what did that feel like for you? What did it feel? You described a very positive thought about what it left you. Did you feel those negative emotions leaving? Did you have those
No, I
same
didn't.
emotions?
And I really appreciate that question. It's a great question. I didn't, but I will tell you though, we did. In fact, we just did one on Saturday. We do workshops, and we do them in person, but we do live streams of them. And it's a full day, and there's 3 breathwork meditations, and my wife records them, and they're really amazing. But what happens in the following days of that when you are doing breath? It's one thing if you're doing a 20-minute breath meditation in the morning, but when you do 3 of them, what it's doing is it's releasing water into that pond, right? So as that pond gets all that new water in it, it's going to overflow. And some of that stagnation, that scum at the top that you could literally walk across, that denseness, that dense energy, that's who we are. That's who Scott was. Dense energy, right? Very matter to matter. If I need to move this, I got to do it this way. And very, very matter to matter. When that pond starts to fill, a lot of that stagnation that is on the top goes over the dam. It goes out the pond. And when it goes out the pond, you feel it. So
Right.
Your question, in those moments, I didn't feel it. I felt the euphoria. But what happens is in the next few days after, those old emotions start to come up, and suddenly I'm angry and I have no idea why.
Right.
I'm depressed and I have no idea why. I'm worn out, just taken out. No idea why. You would think I just introduced all this energy into my body, but as you pour the new in, the old has to come out, right? So we call it, in our courses, that's what we talk a lot about this. Okay, so I know the euphoria is fantastic. I know all the things that are happening to you are absolutely out of this world, and I'm not going to tell you they're an illusion, but they are. And accept them and love them and just be so thankful that they're coming. But the old is going to have to leave that body. And as it leaves, it's going to make sure that it knows, or that it's leaving. Like, I'm really going to make you feel bad right now, because it's just that old stuff coming up, and it's like throwing up and tasting again. That disgust, you're throwing up old energy. So it really is simple, though. You know what I mean? The process is really so simple. You are just replacing the stagnant water with fresh, stagnant energy, dense energy, the old operating system with new technology, with new water, with new energy. And as you do that, you get lighter. And then suddenly when you feel lighter, you feel happier. And when you feel happier, happy events start to show up. But man, those old thoughts, those old feelings don't go away quietly. They want to be heard. And they'll say, and they're talking in the background. They're like, oh, don't worry, Scott will come back. He can never stick to anything. He doesn't finish anything. Don't worry, anger, you'll be back. Don't worry, undeserving, you'll be back. He's not getting rid of us, right? Right? He's not getting rid of us. And then all of a sudden, a couple months go by and they're like, all right, listen, guys, we got to team up. We got to put the perfect event together, because obviously, anger, you're not doing it. And unworthiness, you're not doing it. So what if we could get both of you guys together and let's hit him really hard in the gut? Let's really create an event that he has no choice but to go back to those old patterns, back to the old default operating system. It is withstanding that and have somebody there in your ear saying, it's just bullshit, Michael. Don't listen. It's the mind playing its game. It's just the mind trying to get you to feel. Doesn't know the difference between a good feeling or a bad. It's only you that knows that. It's just the mind doing its job. Outlast it. Stick. And if you go down the road of the depression, it's okay. You'll pop out. You'll pop out. And it really is that simple. It's a survival game, but it's survival of gratitude and happiness. And hey, it's only life, right? If we don't take ourselves so seriously, it's only life. Why not be happy?
Well, let me ask about you, Scott, as the coach, as the healer.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the thing I say this all the time about breath, in that it's so powerful. It's ancient wisdom.
Oh yeah,
free. And it's free, right? Which is why we don't hear about it.
I know,
right?
Doesn't come in a prescription.
It doesn't come in a bottle.
Yep.
So you as a healer, as a coach, when you take people through this, about that energetic exchange and release that's happening, I've seen some healing processes where the facilitator, the coach, whatever you want to call it, the healer, even over Zoom, is helping someone release emotions, and the healer is literally burping or getting other physical sensations of nausea or release. How does that work for you? So when that scum is overflowing the dam, and those emotions are going to have to be experienced by the person who is healing, what about you as the healer? How do you deal with that energy?
Polar bear.
Shake it off.
Yeah, I mean, I literally, and people say that, because we do group Zooms, and we call it the light bulb up the ass club, because all of a sudden, you come in, the person will come in and they'll start talking about the victimization, and we're like, okay, we're not going to go there, right? But we walk them through it, and then suddenly they start to release. We just keep asking questions, and then suddenly you can start to see it leave, and it is like they light up from the inside out. Hence, light bulb up the ass club. And people always say, what is it? Why do you do that all the time? I mean, you're always like, Jimmy shoulders. You're like somebody's, poking you or something. And it's just release of energy. So it's literally shaking it out because it gets heavy. We have oh God, I am so inspired by this man. I love him so much. A man that we call Thor, and he was diagnosed with MS 20 years ago, and he lives in a wheelchair, and I know how difficult that is. And I said, join me on this journey. Give me a year. And he said, okay. And there was the moment where he said, you know what, Scott, I realized this is not a physical condition. This is an emotional one. And I've watched him go. I've watched him sit there and get angry, and I see him and I'm like, all right, let's go, dude. Let's have it right now. What is it? What did she do? The fist comes out and starts pounding the desk, and the tears start coming. And it's like, dude, let's go. Come on, get it up, get it out. Let's have it right now. This is the time. This is the place now. All these people are here for you. They're helping you pull this up. And you can see the lightness, and the lighter and lighter and lighter comes, because we all want to do that so bad. We all just want to be heard. We all just want that pain to go up and out through that throat and out that mouth, because what we do, we bring it up to the throat and then we stop it and we push it back down. But the magic is when it leaves the lips. It's magic. When you see suddenly it is that scum just coming up to the dam and bloop, just dropping right over. And suddenly the water is clear. You can see through because there's no scum. There's none of that stagnation anymore. And it's a process that has to be repeated over and over and over again. And they do it on their own, and they do it through the breath work. That is it. And we man, we say you gotta shake it out. You can't, and you know who's doing it and who's not doing it. The ones that are doing it and the other ones that are faking, stiff as a board. And I'll be like walking by him and kind of nudging them. Let's go. Let's shake it out now. You got to let that feeling. But sometimes those feelings are so traumatic. They're so difficult. It's scary. It's scary to bring up. And you just need to know that you're safe. You're safe. It's that letting go, that surrender. That's where the magic is. But that really is a difficulty. And that's why, facilitators I've had them. This is where I've learned it. And the main one, it has to be you. You're the one that has to let go. Facilitator can whisper in your ear, kick your leg all day long, right? But it has to be you. And that's why I say the healing, whatever this condition is, you caused it. And if you caused it, you can heal it. So let's go. Let's go. What are you waiting for? I laid in a bed and I knew I did this. So I stared at a picture on a wall of me standing on a mountain and I said, I'm going to get back there. And I didn't put all these things on myself. I just didn't have anything else to do. So I stared at that picture. I let my eyes roll up into my head because I couldn't close my eyelids. And I would relive that moment. And I would feel the wind on my face. I would feel the sun. I would see the snow on my skis and my boots, look at my buckles, every little detail, the tree. And after doing that for months, I was there on that mountain. And then eventually I went back on that chairlift and I went back on that mountain and I got that picture again. And it was like, wow, I really did it. I really did it.
So inspirational. Yeah, surrender is really the key, right? And whether you need something to surrender to. So whether it is a coach who provides the catalyst, whether it is, I like to do these events they appear physical and they're very physical, but call them crucible events because they're just manufactured opportunities to surrender to something. And the physical really is only the buy-in. It's only the first layer to really get to the good stuff. Or absent doing these things proactively through a coach or some other immersive experience, life will throw those opportunities at us, right? You'll find yourself in that bed at 35 years old. But for somebody who does want to take action and do this proactively with a healer like yourself. So in today's world, Zoom, with the freedom you and your wife are currently enjoying all over the world, how are you working live workshops as you guys travel? Are you doing Zoom based? How are you working with people in healing now?
Most of our stuff is all Zoom because it's funny when, and of course, you bring up the energy, which is just so my world. Energy, it doesn't matter that we're on a screen. It's really funny. We thought it had to be in person, and we had some really, really, really big transformations in person, in a group of maybe 10 people. Try to keep them small because you need that personal attention, but it's kind of funny when we started doing them over Zoom, people would respond, "Oh my God, that literally changed my life. Like I am a different person coming out of that day." And so we call them awakening ceremonies, where it is just a day of just explaining, this is what your breath does. This is why you have these feelings. This is where it comes up. It's your dad saying, or your uncle walking in and seeing you and saying, "Oh, did you get fat?" when you're 6 years old. And then suddenly you see fat the rest of your life, right? It's understanding that and how the mind works. And then when you put that together with the breath, what you're letting go of. You're letting go of yourself. You're letting go of this little mind that just goes around and around with all the words that you were told once that you didn't measure up to, right? It's the perfect formula. It's the perfect chemistry to make your body feel. And that is all the job of the mind. So it's understanding how the mind works and then going after it. It really is getting ready for the Super Bowl. All right, guys, here's the game plan. This is what that team's going to do. They know that he's our best running back. They are going to focus on him. They know that he is our best receiver. They're going to double team him. That's what the mind's going to do, is to pick these events. We're going to be smarter. We're going to become aware. We're going to know, all right, well, if you're going to double team him, we're going to shoot him out wide. And there you're going to hit him. It really is. You go through the playbook, you go through the game plan, and then you get on the field and you play the damn game. You just get out there and play the game. And I think people, they learn the playbook, they learn it, but then they're so scared to go out on the field because they're afraid, what are people going to think? Are they going to think I'm crazy? Are they going to judge me because I'm trying to make myself better? And so that's a big part of it, is you got to let go of that. You know, they want you to be stuck, because then if you're stuck, they don't have to be any better. I mean, they're going to say, oh, well, he's a mess, so I can be a mess, right? I don't have to step up, right? So it is really just about stepping in and deciding that you're worth it, because listen, your candle's burning. Whether you get another life or not, your candle's burning in this one. So you might as well make it great. And not wait for the moment that you get diagnosed to say, all right, you got 3 months to live, let's start living. It's such bullshit. It's such bullshit. It's now is the time. You know, the car ain't going to make you happy. It's just not. I've had it. I've had the cars, I've had the boats, I've had all of it. Nothing did it. That meditation, that breath work now, that did something. So
for people who are ready, right? What's next?
Yeah,
awakening ceremony. And how often are you running these? Where do people find you?
Are we doing once a month?
Okay.
Best thing to do is go to our website at thefreedomproject222.com. We regularly post them there. And actually, we do a lot of stuff on Facebook at our private Facebook group, which you can invite yourself in. And that is also the Freedom Project 222 at Facebook. And email me, Scott at the Freedom Project 222. My book, Amazon, Finding Ugly, always. And listen, I'll be the first one to tell you, it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be me. You just have to decide this is what you want and find somebody. I hate, people ask me what I do, and I almost throw up because I don't want to say I'm a life coach. I never say that. I just say, I just help people get their happiness back. Or I help you remember who you are, because we've just forgotten. Just like Jim Carrey said, we're not a character. We're not this character we think we are.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you saying that, Scott. I mean, there are so many coaches, healers, guides, whatever you want to call it out there, that want to label, brand name, trademark a particular practice. And hey, that's great if somebody drives a specialty or they have a style.
Yeah.
But the reality is, so much of this is repackaged ancient wisdom, and there is so much more need than there is supply. There's such an abundance of opportunity to help.
Yeah.
Why don't we all do our best, whether that's through Scott or somebody else? The key, and what a lot of what I try to do here is just bring some awareness.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
It's out there.
It really is the awareness of remembering who you are, how powerful you are, and you're creating this life. So why are you creating all that you don't enjoy? You might as well create what you want. Really go after and create what you want, but you got to get on the field in order to do it. Got to get on the field to play the game.
Got to get on the field. Well, that's a great way to wrap it up. Scott, super appreciate your time today and for sharing your journey. Again, thank you for having the courage to talk about some of this stuff, but it's led you to where you are now, who you are, what you're doing now.
100%.
And thank you for what you're doing. Let me thank you for that as well.
Thank you very much. It was a blast. It was a blast.
Pleasure's all mine. We'll get links up in the show notes for this episode to the website, Facebook group, your email, and your book that you just mentioned.
Perfect. Thank you,
Scott. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
All right. Thank you again to Scott. That's a wrap on episode 97. You'll find the show notes, links to all of Scott's social media and webpage, his coaching at manofmastery.com/097, episode 97. Man, coming up on 100 episodes. It's been a couple of awesome years. More than a couple years now. But hey, Scott said some important stuff there, right? Amongst others, reboot, restart, and that's what we're doing here, literally at the end of 2021. Now we're rolling into 2022. So I would challenge you, as you listen to this, hopefully early December, what are you going to reboot? What are you going to restart? What are you going to carry into? What do you need to maintain into 2022? And start now. January 1st is great, but what momentum can you start now and carry it through so you have a better chance of that discipline, of that consistency, of what you want to accomplish? And set those goals huge. Set them high. Be ready to fail. I'm failing all the time. I failed recording the intro to this episode. Computer locks up. I thought it was a great one. Got to start over. I failed at an ultra event I just went and tried to do a couple weekends ago. Well, I say I failed. I succeeded in 19 miles. I failed to make it 31 miles. Wins and lessons all over the place all day long. And it's got me certainly, a little disappointed that it didn't go as planned, but what does? Never does. Life doesn't. Got to adapt. And so it's got me fired up with all kinds of new energy, determination, new awareness, tracking, coaching, a new plan, right? So do that. Set some scary stuff out there and get after it, fail, win, learn, adapt, get a coach if you need it, get a new plan if you need it. And hey, if you need help, you need suggestions, you need input, whether that is tactically or whether it is in envisioning what that next thing is going to be, reach out. I'm here for you. Let's get after it together.